So, first game with DimirTron does not look great. Opening hand does have two lands. That's usually a good starting spot. However, the two lands we have available to us are islands. Not so beneficial. We're sitting on a hand that has 4 black spells in it. Even the flashback on teaching is going to require black. Keeping it, it's possible to go up from there. It feels terrible. I did decide that I wanted to throw it away and find something else. Maybe this was a misplay. You could have found yourself a map. You could have found yourself a swamp. You could have found yourself a prism maybe to make that hand work out. It definitely feels more like the wrong move when I get a 6 that has no lands. And I figured I was on the draw, so I could make up for the fact that I was mulliganing the 6, but I do have to now go to 5, and I feel at least a little bit better about this hand. 2 lands, I get the turn 1 Preordain, Doomblade, Crusher. It felt a little bit better to me at this point. I'm drawn to another Preordain. This is going to find us a wall and an island based on what we have. I'm throwing both of those at the bottom of my library in hopes of finding something a little bit more effective. And it turns out we were facing a green Tron deck, which is pretty great. I'm glad to see that other people continue to try this out. And I think the 2 decks that are being talked about the most as far as Tron becoming a viable option are green and maybe Izzet. And perhaps more so green because it's kind of been done before. So draw into a Prism, which is great. Otherwise, we would have just done map into Preordain. Prism does draw us Disfigure, which is going to be less effective, but can at least give us some advantage killing off these Wall of Roots once he's used them for a significant amount of mana. Down comes Overgrown Battlements and Llanowar Elves, which is okay. I mean, you'll see here in a second. Don't hit a land. Going to Preordain, trying to find a land. Disfigure is really kind of terrible in this matchup because Green Post and Green Tron, they're based around playing fat creatures, and so -2/-2 may give us a combat trick later on if we have a Muldrifter on the field, but even then it's only got the ability to do 4 damage between the -2 and the 2 attack, and it's not going to be as powerful here. Most of these are going to be used simply to kill off elves and try and slow down his mana production. What works really great for him is the lands. We talk about this in our own green Tron deck, and the lands being able to produce mana, but you also have the walls that can produce mana as well. So the Preordain does find a power plant, which is great. I decide I'm going to put down the expedition map so I can find that last piece of Tron on the next turn, and I'm going to simply get rid of this Disfigure. Try and slow his mana down a little bit, on the off chance he can't put together the Tron engine. He's still able to get things going and play fatties off of these walls, but if I can take away, a mana dork and perhaps slow him down a little bit more, I feel it's at least what I have to do to stay in this game, because you see here, he's going to generate significant mana, but you also see this is where I was talking about a Disfigure on a Wall of Roots would have been not so terrible. Because that's taking away 2 mana from him as opposed to the Llanowar Elf, which took away 1. I guess it saves me 1 damage. That's pretty terrible, though. So going to crack this off, find Urza's Mine, and that leaves us with 3 open mana. We could decide to capsize if we absolutely wanted to. What this mostly does is leave us mana available between the Prism for the Doomblade, which is what we want to keep open at all times. We know that Green Tron is going to be running a finisher with Ulamog's Crusher, and we want to be able to save that. That's one advantage we do get. Green as itself has only the ability to deal with creatures in combat. We're going to have an advantage to deal with them in other ways. So he continues to put down these mana walls and is going to hardcast a Tusker, which is definitely a right play here. He's got so much mana available to him. And we can throw out a Muldrifter, which is going to, at the very least, provide us a chump blocker, still leaving us plenty of mana open and available for a Doomblade. What we draw into is Evankar's Justice and another Disfigure. The Justice, not going to really help us with this kind of wall that we're facing. Disfigure, again, probably could have been used on Wall of Roots. But I wasn't thinking about it at the time of playing this game. I was more concerned with how to associate damage Obviously, Muldrifters are going to be more powerful here. All of these walls, none of them have reach, so I can sit here and use that as my win condition as the game progresses. Taking 6 at this point I felt okay with, since I was already at 20. And I really, again, wanted to hold those Doom Blades and kill off Ulamog's Crusher, as opposed to just a Krosan Tusker. And especially if he's playing Sentinel Spider, I wanted to kind of take that out as well. So draw into another Doomblade, which is fantastic. I love to see that. I can now sit here, attack. I have mana available to play Crusher. I have mana available to play just about anything in my hand, thanks to Prism. Decided what I would do is put out the Crusher here, and I was going to pass the turn along. It does provide me a blocker for the Krosan Tusker, something that he does not have access to. Fierce Empath, he's going to tap out here, and you see I was right in the fact that taking out those mana dorks is going to be not so terrible. He has not managed to assemble his Tron engine. I do believe that he's probably not running Expedition maps or Ancient Stirrings to find those necessary pieces, and that's going to be to his disadvantage in construction. But does, as expected, find an Ulamog's Crusher and has plenty of mana off of just these Overgrown Battlements to put it into play, but that's okay because I have plenty of mana available and 2 Doomblades. Here I decide to use Disfigure on Llanowar Elves. Again, 2 things here I'm thinking. One is reduce the number of permanents that he has available to sacrifice to my Annihilator ability. 2, Disfigure is useless because of all of these big toughness creatures. Again, the one thing that I wasn't thinking, the fact that Wall of Roots should have been my target instead of these mana dorks, because it reduces the mana produced by Overgrown Battlement, and it gets rid of an additional mana production. That's okay, we're going to simply pass that turn along. Draw into a tower, which is great. It is, again, our highest producing Urza land. Going to use the Prism here. Perhaps I'm not sure it's a misplay of colors. I think maybe tapping out these 2 for that Doomblade would have been better. Either way, we're not going to really have the ability to use Capsize because we only have 1 Prism. So you would be kind of floating mana either way because of these colorless producing extra. It's just a bit of a clunky mana base at this point in time. Either way, that is going to die. I'm going to be okay with tapping out the Drifter as well, so that the Krosan Tusker can do damage next turn. I'm alright with that. My opponent makes a pretty solid move here in his sacrificing. He gets rid of a forest and a mine. That's pretty good because he has all of these walls that can produce mana. He's really not too worried about sacrificing lands, and he does keep the 2 Tron pieces in play. What he's really going to suffer from at this point, again, no cards in hand. That is going to keep him behind a little bit because green does not really have an answer for drawing cards. That's kind of where this deck tries to make up with things like the Empath and the Auroch Herds to find that extra acceleration where they can. So he's going to chump block here as expected, and take the sacrifice as is. So tapping out here, in top deck mode, it's definitely coming down to can he draw into a a Crusher. Does get a Jungle Spider or Jungle Weaver, obviously not Sentinel Spider, but same kind of concept. That's something that I'm going to want to consider using Capsize or Doomblade on, just so that my Muldrifter can still get through. He's going to attack through here. End of turn. Client's freezing up here. My options here are to take the damage to kill it. I can't Capsize this turn. I did decide that I was going to kill the spider so that my Drifter can get through. Still going to take the 6. I'm at 14, so I'm okay going down to 8. I have Capsize available to me. I now have Prism untapped. I can buy it back. Return Tusker. It won't be able to attack me next turn. And he will be forced to sacrifice 2 other permanents here. So these guys are going through. Again, perhaps a little bit of a misplay. He decides to sacrifice his both lands. Not so terrible again because his walls produce a significant amount of mana. He's given up on the Tron engine at this point in time, and that's pretty good for him because I don't have kind of the spells available to kill off walls, and I'm going to target down other things first. But a pretty bad position for him to be in. I think a bit of a misplay. I probably should have decided to Capsize that Tusker before attacking, just so, again, it left him 1 less permanent to choose to sacrifice to it. But this game is pretty much over. Trying to see what he top decks into here, and does get a Mold Shambler. Kind of an interesting play here. It would have been definitely a strong play. Gets rid of this island, reduces the ability of my mana base to produce that double colored, it becomes a little less strong because I do have the expedition map on the table. I'm going to use this mana while I can. Ooh, that's going to suck. Use this mana while I can to buy back the capsize and return that. Because it's bought back and because I have the expedition map, I'm going to be able to crack that, find the second blue mana that I need, and still get things going on. We'll be able to capsize that Shambler and attack through. He's going to have to sacrifice off some of these guys. It's pretty much game over. He could keep recasting it, but he's just on the ropes, and he's going to have very, very, very poor targets to sacrifice. He sacrificed those lands knowing that these walls would produce the mana he needs, but once I capsize that Shambler, he's not going to really be able to get much going on. Unfortunately, I would have liked to do that second main, because he has that Curzon Tusker in hand, and then with the walls could have recast it, but he knew it was on the ropes, and it was a pretty good game anyways. Alright, so we're going to move into our second game here. Opening hand is decent. We have 2 Tron pieces. We have a turn 1 preordained thanks to this island, and that turn 2 prismatic. It seems pretty solid to me. I hate when that happens. So we're going to get this moving. Obviously going to start out with that turn 1 preordained, see what we can come up with. If you didn't see there, that was a land and a capsize. I decided I would keep the capsize. So playing Slivers again, going to be kind of a hard matchup for most Tron decks. I felt that we had a little bit of an advantage if we could find an early Evankar's Justice and get that moving. I think that thinking is kind of what's going to screw me up here. That does also rely on us not seeing much in the way of Sliver Lords, because once, that Evankar's Justice, you can buy it back and spend it a lot of times, but these Sliver Lords, once you reach 2 on the field, are going to be out of range for a single use. So I think this is where the misplay comes in. We'll see later on. Put down that swamp. I think I should have worked on building up my Tron base instead of trying to build up that second black that I need for Evankar's Justice. But we're going to, anyways, put out that expedition map. I also here pass the turn without using preordained because I wanted to crack the map and find it. And I think this is one of my sloppier games, and I think I made several misplays in this particular one. I'm going to take a lot of damage here. I think I needed to be a little bit more defensive, try and find something a little bit safer thanks to these preordains. Dig for something like a Doomblade or something to really stabilize this mana base. So Sigil Blessing is going to come down. It's going to deal a significant amount of damage. I guess the only benefit is that he had no other creatures here. You see, we're already down to 9, and that's pretty brutal. We're on turn 4, so he got a pretty solid start. And Plated Sliver makes, again, Evankar's Justice a little bit worse. Do draw into a Doomblade, which is helpful. We can use that to kill off the Muscle Sliver and therefore decrease the size of slivers. I also make a terrible play, I think, here. I choose to put Echoing Decay on top. I mean, when we kill off the Muscle Sliver, that's great. I understand my thought process was to, kill off these guys when you have them in multiples, but these Plated Slivers are going to help put them out of range of that -2. Just really kind of a terrible place to be in. And still, you see, I haven't gotten my Tron mana base together, so I don't know. I think I just played it wrong. I think if I had put the tower out, and then I could have used that mind play, get my Tron base together, drawn off the Drifter. Even though I didn't have the black land, I would have had the Prism in play. Anyways, attempt to Doomblade the Muscle Sliver as the second Lord comes down, and in response he does have a Vines of Vastwood. It does keep that alive, and that is going to be game over. One of the faster games, and I think this is great to showcase, however, because not only does it show my poor playing, but it showcases, just how fast these decks can be and why I think that the Tron decks can suffer a little bit now that we are missing out on Glimmer Post.